Hello and welcome to another video from me, Rough Swordsman Wargamer. It's an open the box and it's an unboxing of a brand new game from Vuca Simulations, and it is 1914 Nach Paris, designed by Bertrand Munier. And I have to thank Patrick Gerbhardt and everybody at Vuca Simulations for sending me this advanced production copy. Thank you very much indeed. So, what's all this about? So, 1914, Nach Paris, or 1914 to Paris. The situation: by the end of August 1914, the French were losing the important border battles and retreating inexorably towards the Seine, with the entrenched areas around Paris forming the new front line. Casualties were high, but reinforcements began to add strength to various units. The wary and disillusioned British retreated, and the confident Germans were already mentally polishing their commemorative medals for the future entry into Paris, as they had done in 1871. The advance of the right wing of the army initially proceeded according to plan, but was then halted by a surprise counter-offensive by the British and French on the Marne, forcing the Germans to retreat to the Aisne. So the game, 1914 Nach Paris, offers several small to medium-sized scenarios to play only a specific part of the campaign, including the Battle of the Marne, as well as the option to play the Great Campaign to simulate the first 6 weeks of World War I in the West. The belligerents need to obtain a decisive victory or face the slow descent into trench warfare. It took more than 10 years to develop a game system that corresponds as realistically as possible to the historic facts, to the various testimonies, and, above all, to reality. After several years of testing, you'll discover a credible but not overly complex model to simulate this historical period of the beginning of World War I. So here we've got designer, developer, artists, and proofers of the rules. And the game contents: we've got one rulebook, one scenario book with 12 different scenarios, 4 map sheets, 1,377 counters, 2 player aid charts, 6 setup displays, 1 fortification sheet, 1 turn track sheet, 4 double-sided scenario map sheets, and 2 20-sided dice. So the game features the unit scale, divisions down to battalions, time scale, 1 turn is 2 days, the map scale across the sides is 10 kilometers per hex, playing time 1 to 27 hours, players 1 to 2, with team play a possibility. And on their game meter, the complexity is 6 out of 9, and the solitaire suitability 8 out of 9, so very high. Here's a little bit of the map and some of the counters. They are 15mm, I think that's about 9/16 if I'm not mistaken in old money, and ages 14 plus. Now, this is my first World War I game, so I'm quite excited to have a look. So let's get the shrink wrap off. The shrink wrap is off, and it's a 3-inch box, quite heavy. Typical sort of linen finish and an evocative image on the box cover. Right, let's open the box. So the first thing we see are some maps. So we'll have a look at those in a moment. They're not mounted, of course, but there's quite a few of them. And yeah, it's like a linen finish on the maps as well. But we'll have a look at those in a moment. A couple of D20 dice. The scenario book. And then the rule book. So let's have a look at this first. So here's the rules. Full colour, and comes in at 39 pages. Let's have a quick look through this. Got the table of contents, Introduction and unit types. Quite a bit on that, look. And then the game turn and sequence of play. Topography. Ooh, combat ability test. Some unit details, zones of control, stacking, consolidation, splitting or recombining units, unit movement, barrage, an example of that, against units, and one here against fortifications. Oh, here's a fuller explanation of that against the fortifications, and then combat. Examples, always good to see. Modifiers of combat. This CAB test during combat, which was mentioned earlier. Retreat and advance after combat, a nice example there. Fieldworks and fortifications. There's a lot in this. It's a bit squeaky, the paper. Railroads. Transporting using railroads, I suppose. Yes, here's the networks for the railroads. Line of communications, and an example, replacements. We're getting near the end. The weather. Blowing up bridges and railroads. Engineer actions to repair them. Naval transport, and some optional rules. So we've got fog of war markers, recon. And an index. Look at that. Them's the rules. And here's the scenario book we saw a moment ago. Comes in at 35 pages, and again, full colour, glossy paper. Nice production on this and the rule book. And I think we've got a few learning scenarios, yes. So we've got one there, 2, 3. These are very short sort of scenarios. We've got standalone maps with them, 50 counters, I think that means. How many game turns? It's a bit longer, this one. 8 game turns. Another one there. Oh, crikey. That's a good idea. So it's a small little map, I think. And then we're into the bigger scenarios. So there's a few here. Battle of the Marne. So this is quite a big one, 6 hours, 700 odd counters. Oh dear. This is the full map. That's the campaign. Ooh, this does look good. But we'll see when we get to play it. This is all about this big campaign. I think that might be it. Yeah, there we go. Designer notes and a bibliography. Looks wonderful. Next, 2 copies of a trifold player aid and I don't know if you can see that, but it's a linen finish on the player aid. So let's have a look at one of those. So on the front, it looks like we've got the sequence of play, specific structures destruction, deploy SAR in firing position, fieldwork construction and improvement. And inside, crikey, that's some combat results table there with explanations, modifiers, some effects and allowed railroad direction examples. And on the far right hand side we've got railroad movement and transport capacity, entraining or detraining, unit movement, extended movement, forced march and naval transport. And on the back we've got artillery bombardment versus unit results table, and one for artillery bombardment versus fortifications. The modifiers for those, CAB modifiers and unit facing and ZOCs. So 2 of those lovely player aids. Next, there are 6 double-sided setup sheets. I won't show you them all, but here's one for scenario 1 and 2. Again, even this has got this linen finish on it. Look at that. Next, we've got a fortifications player aid, double-sided, and a game turn track. And I'm not sure what it's for yet, but there's a general track round the outside. Next, there are 10 sheets of counters. And while you're looking at those, I'm going to go and put the kettle on. I will say though, they are on sort of thinnish stock, but with that lovely linen effect on the counters. So here's sheet 1. Nearly there. And here it is, sheet 10. Next, we've got little sort of mini maps for 9 of the 12 scenarios. So we'll have a look at those quickly. So these, of course, have a very small footprint for you to learn the game on. And here's the last one. Last thing in the box are 4 bigger map sheets, 2 of which are sort of standard Wargame map size and 2 half that size. So let's have a look at those. So here's the first of the standard sized maps, and this is Northern Europe with the Channel here and merry old England in the top left hand corner. It's printed, as I said earlier, on this quite unusual sort of linen finish paper, which is quite unusual. Right, let's have a close-up. So we're at the top of the map here, bit of the channel. Antwerp. Not a lot of detail on the map, but I don't suppose you need it. Just right at the bottom here we've got Brussels. And down near the bottom of this map we've got Saint Quentin. And over here on the right hand side of the map we've got this terrain feature here. And back up at the top with Dunkirk we can see the other terrain feature, which is lowland. And these look like transport routes with arrows joining them up and moving on to the coast. Here's one of the smaller maps, and this particular one will go on the right hand edge of the map that I've just shown you. And here's the second standard size map with, of course, there she is, Paris, and Verdun up here. So something to bear in mind, this is going to be quite a large footprint if you play the whole campaign. But we have those standalone maps, and one or two, I believe, are one mappers. Let's have a quick look at Paris. And here we are, we can see the River Seine and Versailles there. So looking good. And here's the smaller map, which fits on the right hand side of the map we've just had a look at. So this has been an Open the Box, an unboxing of Vuca Simulations' brand new World War I game, 1914, Nach Paris, and designed by Bertrand Munier. And once again, I must thank Vuca Simulations for sending me this advanced production copy to show and share with you all. Thank you very much. Well, I hope you enjoyed that and you found it interesting. If you did and you haven't done so already, it would be great if you would consider subscribing to the channel, because that really does help the little channel get its exposure. Also very good for the channel is if you push the like button, the thumbs up of the video. And if you want to be informed of other content the channel uploads, then push the bell. Leave a comment. This, as I said earlier, is my first World War game. And it looks like there's some substance to this, so I'm looking forward to giving it a go in the future. But what do you think? Has this, as I like to say, tweaked your interest? Let me know in the comments section. I love to read them. Thanks as always to my subscribers. Thank you so much. And just before I go, one last thing. If you wish to support the channel a little bit further, well, now you can. You can buy the channel a coffee, and I'll leave a link in the description for that. Or you can push the super thanks button underneath this video. Either of which, if you decide to do that, will be gratefully received and really does help to keep the channel ticking along. So thank you. Well, there we go. It looks smashing, and it's my first World War I game. So we'll see how we get on. So until the next video, as always, you take care and goodbye.